Times of peace were rather weird for Turles in the sense that, for the first time, he truly welcomed them. After all, he was now a father to his son Regins, and the Earthling-like way of raising family kind of grew on him. From time to time also, he found some time to train with Kakarot and Vegeta, but the three of them felt like they needed some sort of major shakeup in order to expand their power even beyond what Gohan had done against Cell. Catching up to him and evening out the ground between the three of them took a considerable amount of time. But within the space of a few short years, they had managed to achieve it for themselves, and Super Saiyan 2 was now within their reach. And to be honest, for the former space pirate, it felt almost anticlimactic to get it outside of the main scuffle, just through boring training. But then again, running stagnant would put them at risk of being underprepared for future threats, which clearly to Turles would no doubt happen at some point. In his spare time, he was reading and trying to connect with his son. It was easier when he was little, but the older he became, the harder it was to move Regins and convince him to spend more time on training. He started pretty early, yes, but Tights did recognize this as part of the Saiyan culture. She understood it. She didn't want him to push their child too hard in that direction though, but neither did she want him to abandon that tradition. After all, she made loads and loads of fictional races and cultures and classes, and she got it. She understood what it meant. But at the same time, she wanted him to find an even keel. But nevertheless, it was unreal to see him going Super Saiyan so early, with his heart not even being fully in it. Apparently, Kakarot's second son Goten and Trunks were also rather prodigious. Thought Turles. Maybe it's something to do with being half Saiyan, a hybrid DNA or something like that? I don't know, that was something Bommel was good at, but it was hard to say really. It's not that there was any violent misunderstanding between the pirate and his own progeny, but rather that it was hard for him to feel like he was a cool dad, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, how is that possible? He rode a bike, a really cool one. He was crazy strong and tough. And according to the things that he had learned about Earth's culture, he had every basic trait of being a cool parent. He was off the rails. He just had that alternative sheen. But he felt like Regins found it easier to connect to his mother more and spend some time just drawing silly pictures. Now, of course, Turles was now being supportive of his partner, and together they promoted her new book, Turles, the Intergalactic Pirate Series, which, unlike Chaco, the Space Policeman, by the way, that is real, gained some much-earned popularity. Although, according to some fan theories within the fictional show, the two shared universes. Turles didn't really understand why everything had to be a part of some big, massive multiversal event these days. Everything had to be connected, but apparently, this is how Earthlings like to share their stories. What are you looking at? But still, he was irritated when Regins took his art to the walls of their house. And while Tights enjoyed it greatly, the Saiyan wasn't too keen on this particular improvement. He wasn't big on art. It always reminded him of Elec and money laundering, them stealing paintings and hanging them up on the wall as some kind of trophy to the ruthlessness and bloodshed that it actually conveyed discreetly. Rich people, he couldn't stand that. They bossed him around, they just were swaggering around, trying to inflate their status. And something that also brought back memories of his former king. At least he found some level of happiness in seeing that there was a playful rivalry with Trunks, and that, together with Goten, the three boys formed a really nice solid trio. Something that reminded him of his own little street gang back in the day, only happier and not abandoned on a desert rock of a planet, which was a weird admission to have, but he had been on this planet long enough to stop pretending that he didn't get any sort of enjoyment from how things were working out right now. He was enjoying it. He was one of the strongest Saiyans ever. And he had a family, a house on a cozy planet, and he still had a friendship with his crew and outside of his crew. What do the Saiyans of old know about happiness? Oh, if only they were smarter, they wouldn't be dead right now, unlike him. But Turles liked living, and this life that he had built for himself was good. The same went for Amond and the Beans. They found themselves quite content, which was also very important. There were times when he wondered what had become of Dyson and Kakarot, but if they wanted to reach out, they would already have done so by now, but the door to them still wasn't closed. Even though the source of an immediate threat was nowhere to be seen, it could always arrive, something that Goku had taught him, and something that he and Vegeta had surprisingly agreed on through different means. There were things that alerted him either way, such as Android 18 and Krillin becoming a couple. On one hand, he shouldn't really be complaining about second chances, but on the other hand, it still felt rather surreal. Seeing Amon taking Android 16 under his wing and together with Yamcha, trying to show him how to play baseball. It was rather entertaining to see two big behemoths in the matches, with the mechanical one just constantly hitting it out of the park, and then also questioning the logic of the game. But as far as Turles could tell, 16 was enjoying himself, well, at least as much as a machine could. 5 years after Gohan's victory over Cell, something did happen. As Turles was watching TV, kind of bored with all of these Earthling daytime talk shows, he received some information that an alien vessel had been seen over Parsley City. What alerted him greatly was the fact that he recognized the ship. In fact, it was his. Well, at least his old one. The same one he allowed Dyson Kakarot to take all of those years ago. He let Tights know that he was going to investigate the matter himself before calling on Amond, Piccolo, and Gohan for backup. Chi-Chi wouldn't be happy that he was taking her baby boy, but they couldn't have possibly the strongest of them slacking. Vegeta and Kakarot were probably training somewhere on a remote planet to not cause any damage to their homes, so calling them would only be an emergency measure. But he felt like he wouldn't need that right now. And as they arrived at the ship, much to his disappointment, Turles had noticed that the city had already been attacked. Someone was trying to get his attention. Well, it had worked, and he very much knew who was doing it. Dice was back for more. He hadn't learned. He'd gathered some mercenaries to carry out his bidding, but the generic ones weren't really a challenge for the former captain though. He heard a slow clap, and although he was with a new crew, Dice was the one clapping. Well, well, if it isn't the mighty Turles, good to see that you're still breathing. The former Pukinpan prince was grinning. The Saiyan eyed his new group and froze in place. Yes, Kakarot was still by his side, as was some tall heron with a mohawk, as well as the 3 Macaroni siblings, whom he recognized from some odd jobs when he was working for Alec: Pasta, Penne, and Getty. And then there was Rossell. You remember her from part 1? She was missing an eye though, replaced with a cybernetic one, and a cybernetic arm. It had been many, many years, but he knew that it was her. How was this possible? He thought that there were only 3 surviving Saiyans left. It brought back some very bad memories. Long time no see, Turley. I see you got comfy here. For a street rat. Dice tilted his head. You see, I am making a friendly reunion possible. Aren't you grateful, Captain? Turles crossed his arms. I don't think you realize that you're all severely outclassed. Dice smirked. We shall see. Beto, take care of the green one. I want Turles and the other one alive. The big oaf there? I don't care, you can kill him however you like. Hey! Amon snarled at his old comrade. And so the ambush began. As the pirates rushed towards Turles, Piccolo, and Gohan, they thought that they would have easily overpowered them, which proved to be a big mistake, as the trio was skillfully dancing in between them. Amon, meanwhile, went for Kakarot, as the two of them engaged in a very even duel. Whilst Piccolo was testing his mettle against Beto, Gohan was giving the Macaroni siblings a rather hard time, which left Turles squaring up against his childhood bully, Rosella. But this time, things looked different, as she was the one on the defensive. The former captain didn't really want to hurt her just yet. "How did you survive? Are there any others?" he asked, kind of desperately. "No, just me. And you were rather lucky to get stuck there. It was my own fault for letting you live," she smirked, trying to punch him, but he easily blocked it. "So, who left you with that?" He pointed at her eye. "Dodoria. But the lazy bastard never really cared to check on the wreckage of the ship. I pulled myself back together, made some allies, and survived through sheer toughness." "Well, I would surrender if I were you. No one needs to die here." Rosella shook her head. "Gods, Dice was right. You've really gotten unbearably soft." And as she punched him, she turned Super Saiyan. The only reason Turles took it was because he didn't expect it. How? Had she managed to find some training of her own? How did she figure this out? Dice laughed at his surprise. "Oh, that little thing? Well, your old friend and me, we've eaten a lot of fruit." "Wait. No, you shouldn't have any left." Rosella nodded. "We have a rather good benefactor that wants us to test our mettle against you." But to Dice's surprise, Turles wasn't upset. "Well, that only means I no longer have to hold back." And then he turned Super Saiyan himself and started to turn the tide back towards himself. Dice decided to join in the fray and aid Rosella, whilst Gohan was done dispatching the Macarena and joined to help Turles. They had to give it to Dice. He had gotten stronger. He was definitely more powerful than a standard Super Saiyan, and that made Turles' stomach turn on itself, thinking how many lives he must have destroyed to get that power. They were able to hold them back though, and Turles even managed to send a message to Tights to call her buddy Jarko. He was going to have quite the busy cargo. This time though, Dice wasn't going away. At least, not as a free man. Armand was doing pretty well against Kakarot, but he was happy to see that his new morality was in line with his own. As he was trying not to kill the bounty hunter, Dice was breathing heavily, but was still very much ready to fight. "Our rivalry will finally come to an end." Turles shook his head. "I really thought you'd learned everything. First off, if I wanted, I would have called for backup." He caught his fist, with Gohan blocking the attacks of Rosella. Dice's eyes widened. "Secondly," Turles continued, "this is just your thing. I don't consider you my rival, just a lost kid. This is kind of my fault actually, but you are unwilling to rethink your life," he said, twisting his arm. "And lastly, Super Saiyan is so last season." And then he screamed, turning into Super Saiyan 2, allowing Gohan to take his place in battle. He saw fear in their eyes, and in one moment, it occurred to both Dice and Rosella that Turles was merely toying with them, feeling them out, that this fight was rigged from the start. They had picked a battle they couldn't have won. And then they were beaten to a pulp, joining the Macarena, Beto, and Kakarot on a pile of beaten up individuals, but not dead. Turles grabbed Dice by the collar. "All right, who is that benefactor that you mentioned?" "Let me guess. Is it Alec?" The former prince spat blood in his face and laughed. "Alec? Don't be stupid. No, I'm not gonna tell you my new source. It's not over, Turles." "Well, I'm taking back my ship then, and you'll have some time to think about your lives." He then watched as Jarko and other galactic patrolmen arrived to take them in. "You're working with the space cops? Wow, you've truly fallen." Rosella shook her head. "Not my ideal resolution, but if you decide to remain stupid, this is just so you won't hurt yourselves." She hissed at him. "Why don't you just kill us? Why won't you just give us a warrior's death?" "Because between you and me, a warrior's death, it's kinda overrated. Trust me, been there, done that. There are things worth living for outside of revenge, you know. Maybe one day, you'll understand. But I guess not today." As the patrolmen thanked Turles for his help, they then took Dice and his crew in. That was the only option. They couldn't let them go again. Maybe they would rethink their lives. And hey, in the worst case scenario, he could just break them out one day if he really wanted to actually take them out. He saw that Armand wasn't really approving of this act of mercy, but he would understand eventually, because killing their old crew And those new additions? What would it serve? It would serve no purpose at all. After the ships departed, Gohan looked at Turles.
Well, that must be annoying.
Slightly, the former captain nodded. I just want them to find a place in life outside of focusing on me. But, hey, cool. Got my ship back. Maybe we should check out what they did with it. Bomb was gonna have a field day with this. As they explored the vessel, they didn't find anything interesting in the ship's computer. But there were plenty of weird, tree of might-like fruits, which Turles destroyed immediately, of course. The only thing of interest they did find was a rather short letter from Dyson's personal notes. S assured me that his latest batch is going to be even more potent. Earth would be an ideal place to test it out. Oh, we're lucky that Dyson was dumb enough and started out by making some noise. Piccolo sighed with relief.
I wonder who this S character is. Hopefully, the Galactic Patrol will be able to learn the truth.
Gohan pondered. Turles shook his head. If he wasn't able to get it from him, he doubted Jarko and his irritating law enforcer pals would be able to do so. But for now, he had his ship back, which was a little win. He missed that vessel. He never should have let Dyson and Kakao leave with it in the first place. As the prison transport arrived at the galactic prison, Jarko was irritated and slightly nervous. On one hand, he was able to get 6 prisoners safely over here, but no one wanted to know how, in the universe, that Dyson, their leader, had escaped. It was just as if he had vanished into thin air from the transport. The Galactic Patrolman didn't like that uncertainty. He would have to find a way to tell Turles about that. But that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now.